One thing about working with creatives is we tend to have all these cool ideas. So in this episode, we're going to look at why some agencies work with certain creatives and what creatives can do to make themselves more appealing to those agencies. Often what we find is when we work with some agencies that they'd say that they were building out brand, but all they were doing was building out color palette, logo, and just a nice looking website. And that's difficult to brand because if there's no story behind it, you can't tell. We always say that, story is king. Right? And you'll hear that throughout creativity and like the creatives in the industry. Well, they'll sit there and say, no, well, story is king, content is king. But the reality is that yes, as long as it aligns with the brand, right? You can tell a great story, but if the story doesn't match with what you're trying to say, then it makes no difference. It's just another cool story.
To be able to work with someone, to trust someone that you're saying, you know what, you're taking on a big deliverable for us. We need your guidance, we need your support, we need your process, and we need to know at the end of the day that we got the deliverable we needed and the assets and the options we needed to make sure that our client was happy. And sometimes there's a big disconnect with that.
Do you remember how because we started working with you, it's almost 2 years ago now, right?
Yeah.
So do you remember how that interaction happened? Like, do you remember how you heard about us and, reaching out to us and that experience of kind of being onboarded by a creative?
Your name came up. And, certainly we looked at different options and reached out to about 3 or 4 different options. I can tell you when I got on the line with you, right away, I'm like, okay, he gets it. He gets the brand challenge we're trying to accomplish here. He understands sort of what we are trying to do. He's got that strategic mindset. So you were layering on something that was a lot different than the typical videographer who might just get on and be like, okay, what do you need? What do you want? Like, what are you doing? You instead looked at it from the perspective to say, what's the brand challenge? What are we trying to do from a brand perspective? Which hit the note right away.
Nice. Because that's always been the number one thing that I am most conscious about is the thing you just brought up, which is kind of funny. Yeah. When I was doing just photography, I would walk into these meetings and they'd be like, well, we need a photographer. And it's like, oh, we want to make these pictures and do this. And I'm like, that's great. Can you tell me why? Like, tell me, if I can know the why, then I can make these photos so much better. And so for me, it was just this stepping stone of like, to make these look like this, you have to do this. And often I felt like I was doubling up on what the agency wanted because the agency, sometimes we get frustrated because like you're asking so many questions. I'm like, yeah, but if I don't ask all these questions, how am I going to know what to do? I asked them, well, what can this video do for you? Right? What can it do? And how do you expect, what's your expectations from this? Because if you expect this video to make you $1 million more and you don't put any marketing behind it, do you really expect it to make $1 million more?
Yeah.
So how do you spend wisely to make $1 million more with, a $25,000, $50,000 asset?
Yeah.
So that's a good investment at that point.
Yeah, I think it's like the comparison is like someone who decides, you know what, I want to get in shape, I'm going to go buy a treadmill. So they buy the treadmill, but they never get on the treadmill. Mm-hmm. So how well is that treadmill working for you? It's not well.
Yeah.
So it's no different. And I think like one of the things that is really beneficial, especially in that case, if I'm getting footage done, if I'm getting filming done, I'm going to get, a series of both B-roll and final video or videos. Mm-hmm. How can I break that up into tons and tons and tons of different assets? How can I grab little snippets, vignettes of different things? And how can I use that for ongoing content strategy? Yeah. Where can I immerse that in? Plan that ahead. And that could be organic, that can be paid, that could be a combination of both.
It should be a combo of both. Yeah. Like what we're doing now, this is organic, but we can then chop this up into ads and we can run things like that. So it's like being aware of that is really key. Yeah. And I would say that video in itself is worthless.
It is. Yeah.
It's only the intention that you put behind it that makes the difference. Should we be approaching agencies with transparent pricing, saying like, this is how we price out our stuff? Is it good to have a rate card ready to go? Is it good to have some samples? So like, this project costs this project costs this.
I know I have to set a flat fee budget and I can't, I've been in that awkward position multiple times where it's sort of, okay, like we need to extend more budget for this. So we got to add more budget for that. And we go on and on in this sequence of adding budget. And it's not a comfortable position that I'm in. And I can say from my perspective, having gone through that in the past as well, it can really rub a client the wrong way as well. Mm-hmm. I think you have to be forthright with your needs early on and set your flat fee budget.
And you and I both know it's like it scales based on what the client needs, like the deliverables, right? Like one deliverable versus 5 are 2 different kind of things, right? Yeah. So that's kind of why we try to, when we put the scales together, we're like, this is where, the high end would be, this is where, the entry level would be. So,
yeah.
And so it would make more sense to kind of say, well, kind of go up and down on the mid, where you just say, like, if you're, like, our average project is like 25,000. So if we said like 20 to 30,000, is that a better spread, do you think? Or is that still too wide?
No, I think that's a decent spread. I think that's somewhere where someone can say, yeah, that's, if I'm in that range, that level, yes.
Yeah, because then the client can come to you and say, well, like, we're going to be pushing on the 20. Yeah. And you can say, well, I'll make that very transparent with the creatives. There will be some, like, concessions when it comes to deliverables. Because that's usually what we do. We really can't adjust the dailies, right? Because the cost is what it is, right? But we can adjust on the deliverable front.
Exactly. And I think if you look at it that way, I mean, you would look at it no different if you're working with a client.
No, exactly, yeah.
And same with the range. It's like if you went to a client and said, this might be between, 15 and 60, they're going to be like, okay, like, help me define that a little bit better.
Yeah.
It's the same scenario.
Okay.
So I think it's more, then if you're putting the onus back on the agency to figure out what their scope should be and guessing what that range should be for you, then that makes it difficult for them, right? It makes it harder. There's friction in between that's allowing that not allowing them to work with you, essentially, is the problem.
Is it critical for creatives to be transparent with their process and their timelines?
Yes, definitely. And I think that there is a part where there has to be an upfront understanding as to what timelines are going to be like and what the process is going to be like. Sometimes it's going to mean, you're right now.
Yep.
Because there are agencies that are saying, like, we need this and we need this now and we need our availability now. And I get that. It's like, but you have, as the creative, have to look at that and go, you know what? I understand that. That's not a right fit for me right now. Here's how I do businesses and here's why I need to do what I do. It helps me maintain the quality and the process that I put into this. So I think you have to follow your own. Creatives are no different than agencies, and I don't think that there's any sort of divide between. I think an agency, one of the benefits that comes from it often is, especially in your core trade, what you do best. Mm-hmm. You've got team, you've got people that do that. So you've got people that you can collaborate with. I know for us, collaboration is a very crucial and key thing. If you're on your own as a solopreneur, for example, as a creative out there doing your thing, and you do that for years, you don't get that opportunity necessarily to collaborate with enough people. You collaborate with your clients, but you don't get enough time to collaborate with other creatives to grow and learn and build. Our team members, one of the things that I find from our team is some of the biggest benefits they see coming in and working with us is they get that opportunity to grow. They learn so much in such a short window of time. They're learning from everybody else that they work with. And each brings their own sort of perspective and insight, I think. And if you've spent all your career only doing solopreneur kind of work as a creative, it's very, very difficult for you to get that perspective, that sort of insight that you wouldn't get.
The collaboration point is what changed me as an artist. Because when I was doing just photography, it was like, I was doing just photography, but then as I learned videography and then learned how to direct and then ultimately how to kind of run the team, it was a different approach. And like now I can see things in such a different manner. And I also scale it based on the client. So like I'll go in there and be like, okay, well, yeah, sure, we can do this, but they don't need that. Like their brand is all organic. As creatives, I don't think you grow without interacting with creatives. And like you said, it's a partnership between agencies. And I've learned more through working with agencies and working with other artists than I would have just going out from me to client.